Atheism doesn't have common sense.
Wait, what? First off, wouldn't it be atheists have no common sense? Ironic. I like to think I have a bit of common sense, so stick around to the end of the video to find out why this dude thinks atheists are lacking in the common sense department. Hello, I'm the Skeptic. I watch videos on YouTube that make extraordinary claims, whether that's evolution is fake or atheism is wrong, but mostly the claim that a god is real, and then explain why I don't accept their position. Before we start today's video, do the things with the buttons. That would be superb. Tom Brown popped up into my YouTube search, and this 2 minutes and 22-second video caught my attention. Atheism has no common sense, huh? Well, Tom, lay it on me. Why on earth is that?
Almost the entire world, more than 90% of the world, believes in some form of deity or God that has made the world.
Where did you pluck that statistic from, Tom? There are many factors to take into account. One, for instance, is that some folks live in a place where being open about lack of belief will get you killed. Nuns are on the rise, which I discovered when I went to the American Atheist Convention 2022. And I know it's not the world, but about 30% of American adults now claim to be religiously unaffiliated. So perhaps your 90% is incorrect.
Less than 10% of the world's population is atheistic or agnostic. Do you realize that? A very small percentage.
Have you heard of appealing to popularity? Just because lots of the people on the planet believe there is a God, it doesn't actually mean there is one. You'd still have to show that there was. And anyway, how many different gods are believed in? If you split it into which god was believed in or not believed in, surely the numbers would be much closer to each other. You've got to think about each denom, Tom.
It's hard to get almost the entire world agreeing on anything. When it comes to politics, social issues, morality, I mean, there's just, 60-40%, you know what I mean? And if it's 60-40, then that's a big percentage. That's like a landslide in an election.
Way to drop a percentage bomb, Tom. No, I don't think I do know what you mean. 60-40 means that it's a close call, but even then, it doesn't demonstrate anything, because the slightly bigger percentage could just be convinced of something for bad reasons.
But when you have 90% or more believing in God or some form of God who made the world, then that ought to tell you something.
It just tells me you haven't done your research, or that you're accepting that every god that is believed in is correct, when we all know that that's not how it works. And out of all of those different gods, what gives you the arrogance, the right to say the ones you don't believe in are also wrong, Tom?
That being an atheist and an agnostic makes no common sense.
I think Tom is getting common sense and just regular old sense mixed up. Maybe it makes no sense to you, Tom, but that's not the same as common sense. Is common sense the same as sense that is common, Tom?
How could you, if you're an atheist, say, well, I'm right and almost the entire world is wrong?
Well, it depends on what you think we're saying we're right about. I can be right about not being convinced that there is a god or gods. The difference is, we don't have to demonstrate being unconvinced. I could even go as far as saying I'm convinced there is no god, because the burden of proof hasn't ever been met for the existence of any gods. That's also right. Want me to carry on, Tom?
That almost sounds like a conspiracy theorist.
I think you need to look up what conspiracy theories are. It's not a conspiracy to not believe in a god. Conspiracies are more like the moon landing was faked, or the earth is flat, or a PC game from the mid-90s on a CD-ROM, Tom.
You're always going to get a small percentage of doctors or lawyers, small percentage of ministers that's going to hold to some outlandish lie.
Maybe this is projection. Do you think Tom is holding on to some outlandish lie, like, I don't know, the proof of the existence of a god or something? What other outlandish lie would it be? Is this projection a custom, Tom?
We call it conspiracy theories. But that's what atheists and agnostics are doing. They're holding to an idea that hardly anyone accepts to be true.
Yeah, sure. Hardly anyone accepts that atheists aren't convinced. Eye roll. That's why they don't believe. You know who could change that? Someone like you, Tom Brown. You could give a single piece of irrefutable evidence for your God, and then atheists could use their common sense to accept it. That hasn't happened. That's why most atheists don't believe. You can accept it or not, but it doesn't change the fact that nothing convincing enough has changed the mind of atheists like myself. Sorry, that answer was long, Tom.
And yet an atheist, an agnostic, thinks their idea is the right one.
Yep, the idea that burdens of proof haven't been met are right. Otherwise, I'd be convinced. You can't be wrong about what convinces you, Thomas. It either does or it doesn't. And because I'm not convinced, a theist I have not become, Tom.
And there is validity in common sense. Common sense is simply that. It means it is a knowledge in which most people agree to be true.
Are you changing definitions, Tom? Common sense isn't a knowledge that most people agree to be true. It's thinking and behaving in a reasonable way and making good decisions. You can be exceptionally smart, but have little common sense. So maybe use a better definition, Tom.
And if you can't accept what most people agree to be true, then we really can't have debates or arguments.
That's not how debates work, Tommy. Arguments are usually opposing positions. And like I've said before, just because an idea or belief is popular, it doesn't make it any more true. More and more folks are coming around to the idea that Lisa the rainbow giraffe is the one true deity. Leaf be upon her. But just because there are 6 or 7 people that believe in it, it doesn't make it true. Though it's Lisa, so it must be true. You should start to believe in giraffe-dom, Tom.
This is why common sense is an important tool in debate. Atheists and agnostics are rejecting what is common sense to the rest of the world.
Belief in an undemonstrated being, or many beings, since that's what you started with, isn't common sense, Tom Thumb. What atheists are actually rejecting is the claim that a god or gods exist. If you have so much common sense, why not use it to demonstrate the being you think is there? It doesn't take much common sense to work out how to move on, Tom.
And that alone ought to show you how suspect their belief that God doesn't exist or that he's not likely to exist is such a fallacy.
Wow. Tom really doesn't understand the burden of proof. Can we start teaching this in schools? I'd like to start teaching the burden of proof in schools. Maybe a little late in this instance, though. The burden of proof may be hard for Tom to fathom.
It shows you their error in their thinking, and it confirms what the Bible says, that a fool has said, not a smart person, a fool has said, there's no God.
Oh, not this again. A fool has said that there's no rainbow giraffe called Lisa, for it is written in Swampland 119. See how easy it is to just say things and not demonstrate it. Just because a book says it, it doesn't make it true. Just because a large group accept it, it doesn't make it true. There are people that believe the earth is flat. It doesn't suddenly become flat when the majority of folks think that way. Atheists aren't foolish for not being convinced that there's a God because of one Bible verse. You could make this really easy by demonstrating that there is indeed a God. It's taken a few thousand years and there's still no demonstrable evidence, but maybe you could be the one, Tom.
Because it doesn't make any common sense.
And that isn't how you're supposed to use that in a sentence. Wow, that video was pretty short. And so, to really get our money's worth, I want to see what other videos he has on his channel. 3.8 thousand subscribers. Okay, videos here. Have a look around and, atheism is a lie? Bingo. Though, is it a lie or is it lacking in common sense, Tom Brown?
Atheists like to pretend they're smarter than the average person. They like to view people who believe in God as superstitious.
This isn't the first time I've heard this said.
Looking down on men and women of faith as being stupid.
Maybe they all share the same script. And like I said in that video, there's a difference between thinking someone isn't as smart as you and thinking that what they believe is questionable due to a severe lack of evidence. I don't think you're a clown, Tom Brown.
They like to think that their education has caused them to surpass this archaic idea of belief in God.
What are you even saying? It could have nothing to do with education. It could just be standards of evidence. You know, you could just ask a non-believer instead of guessing why it is that someone doesn't believe. I'm sure there are atheists in your hometown, Tom Brown.
The truth of the matter is, the scripture says, a fool has said, there is no God.
So you're going to cite that same verse every time? I don't care that a book says that. The Bible still hasn't been demonstrated to be the word of a God. At best, we can say a man who thought the same way as you wrote that. It still doesn't make it true. You're starting to make me frown, Tom Brown.
You know, a fool is not someone who's uneducated. It's someone who actually sees the evidence and refuses to go by it.
What evidence? You can't say there's evidence for God, but not present it. Is that because if you do present it, it gets refuted immediately? I always hear that there's evidence, but nothing I've been shown is convincing. And I've got to tell you, it's a real letdown, Tom Brown.
The evidence is quite clear. We know one thing. Everything came into being because it was created by something else.
No, that's not quite right. First of all, what we see all around us isn't evidence of a deity. Created is the wrong word to use too. Demonstrate that this was all created first. Then we can find what or who, if anything, did it. But until then, I'm out, Tom Brown.
I look at a tree and I recognize that a tree came because there was an acorn. I look at you. I recognize you came into being because of a mom and dad. I look at a mountain. I see that it came into being by two land ridges pushing together, creating the mountain. In other words, everything we see today, it all came from something else.
Did he just debunk his own look at the trees, look at everything argument? It all came about because of natural means. Yes, all very explainable. Natural processes, physics, chemistry, biology. Maybe throw in the towel, Tom Brown. Oh, man.
In other words, you cannot say that something came out of nothing. It doesn't exist.
Exactly. You're doing a great job here, Tom. Really saving me some time. Something can't come from nothing. And we're not suggesting that there was nothing. There quite possibly was always something around, Tom Brown.
That's not possible. Common sense tells us that everything came because of something.
Oh, wow. Back to the common sense thing. And actually, it's not necessarily because of something, but because there was something. It's all about how you say the words, you know, how they sound, Tom Brown.
Now, you take us back to the very first act of creation. Scientists can tell you what happened at the very millisecond. They can tell you that this element created this element, and when this element hit, then this element was formed. They can tell you the process, but they can't explain to you what is the cause of the first element.
So I guess what science needs is a guy who isn't a scientist that gets the definition wrong for common sense to explain it. You can't explain it, so it must be God. Sure. I could tell you that the colourful deity Lisa the Rainbow Giraffe caused the rapid expansion of the universe by licking the singularity with her extra hot tongue. And things aren't made of elements in giraffism. No, things are made of elephants. Obviously. Lisa is a goddess, Tom Mess.
And if you say, well, we just need to go and we'll find out that it was this element that created the first element, well, then it ceases to be the first element. Then we have another problem. What created that element? And then we go infinitum until finally you realize there is no explanation, because you cannot say that the first element came on its own.
I wish I knew more about quantum fluctuations and how energy can become matter, but even just saying that sentence with no understanding of it shows that it is possible. You don't need a being to start it, because science shows that it was possible. But if you want to understand it, ask a scientist, not a floating circle that just thinks certain ideas are a bit ridiculous, Thomas.
So that's why belief in God is the most common sense thing for any human being to uphold.
Sure. Personal incredulity will do that to a person, Tom.
Because belief in God is to say that God, who is beyond the universe, is the cause of the first agent which created everything.
But if it was beyond the universe, surely it wouldn't be able to interact with the universe. And if it can interact with the universe, it's not beyond it. It's part of it. And if it's part of it, then it's demonstrable. So which is it? Lay it on us, Thomas.
When I look at the universe, it's made up of three things: time, space, and matter.
When you look at the universe, can you see time? And yet you conclude that something you can't see or prove made it happen. Why can't I see that? Maybe I'm a universe-spying novice, Thomas.
So that means this God has to be beyond time, space, and matter. According to the Bible, God is eternal, which means he's beyond time. He's everywhere, which means he's beyond space. And he's invisible, which means he's beyond matter.
And so, if it is beyond all those things, how could it possibly interact with what is within the universe? You're making one heck of a lot of claims and using the thing that suggests those claims to back up those claims. Just saying it doesn't mean it is. You need to actually show it is, Thomas.
But since he is God, he can become matter. And in Christianity, we believe he did become matter through his son, Jesus Christ.
Again, you believe it, which is just peachy, but you haven't shown it to be the case. And now that you've thrown in all this, God is outside of time, space and matter, it would be impossible for it to manifest itself as or in a human. So where do we go now, Tom Brow?
So you realize, if you're an atheist, you're actually being foolish because you're trying to say that everything came out of nothing. That's eventually your conclusion.
Or you could actually do the honest thing and ask what an atheist thinks, rather than asserting you know, when you really don't. Just ask an atheist what it is they believe, and they'll be honest, Thomas.
Nothing is the cause of the universe.
Wait, what?
Nothing is the cause of the universe. Nothing is the cause of the universe.
Did we just get through all that for him to admit that nothing caused the universe? Why all the dramas, Thomas?
That doesn't make sense. The only explanation is God created the universe.
Well, I don't know if it's the only explanation. That's your explanation. But which God? Why not my rainbow giraffe? Why did it have to be created? Couldn't it have always just been? Could it have been an alien race? There are so many options. Of course, each one would need to be demonstrated rather than just asserted, but I think it's safe to say that Tom Brown lost his crown and didn't demonstrate that atheism was a lie, or that atheists have no common sense. Skeptic! Let me know in the section below how you would have responded to Tom. A big thank you to this month's Ticks on Patreon. MISM, Addy Rockart, the Enixes, Travis and the absolute lunatic Jimmy, as well as all the base ticks. You can become a supporter on Patreon too at patreon.com/theskeptic. The link is in the description, along with all the links to my other socials. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. From me, the Skeptic, stay safe, keep thinking logically and ask questions. Skepticism is the first step towards truth. See you next Saturday.